Well, hi again. It's Eric, and I'm back in the backcountry. Last time I was out in the wilderness, I was in the desert, and now I'm in a very different kind of place. I'm at the beach, although you can't currently tell from kind of where I've set up my camera. I'm also starting my video from a different kind of place than I usually do. I'm not at the trailhead. I'm at my first night's campsite right now. I did take a few videos on the way here, and I'll show you those in a minute, but I didn't want to stop and do a whole monologue because it's currently kind of on and off raining, so I wanted to get to shelter. It's also about maybe 45 minutes until dark already, so wanted to get set up, feel secure, and then I could sit down and talk to the camera. But I should mention where I am. I'm in the Lost Coast in Northern California. I departed a few hours ago from Sheltered Cove. I'm gonna go hiking it south to north. I found a pretty cool camp spot as well. I'll show you that in a sec. I'm in a grove of trees that I think will protect me from what I expect to be a very windy and rainy night. I am really looking forward to this trip. I'm gonna be here for 5 days, and I expect a lot of very unique challenges with tides, weather conditions, and maybe some interesting creek crossings we'll see as well. The tides especially is not something I have to worry about up in the mountains or in the desert, obviously. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think the change in scenery will be spectacular. But more so, just the fact that I can be out here in the off season is a real privilege. And here is my tent. I was just filming from right there. My tent was beside me, and I'm in a sort of grove of small coastal trees. I'm not sure what kind. And of course, I'm at the coast. Okay, it's gotten dark, and this is where I leave you for the first day. I will see you in the morning. In the meantime, enjoy these moments from my walk to the first campsite. Good morning. It is day number 2 on California's Lost Coast. It rained like hell all night. Fortunately, it's not raining now. Hopefully it stays that way. It's approximately 8 a.m. I'm making some breakfast. I've got a couple hours to chill out because of the tides. There are several impassable zones in the Lost Coast during high tide that I have to kind of time to get past. I'll show you my tide table in a minute, as well as my map to tell you where I'm at and where I'm going. It was so cold and rainy last night that it was a little bit miserable, to be honest. I'm not personally wet, but just everything around me is, and the temperatures were not in the fun zone. So I'm glad that things have warmed up a bit and it's not raining now. Although I'm not wet, my shoes definitely are. Those things are waterlogged as hell. Didn't want to bring them in because they were really sandy and wet already from the hike on the first day. So kind of just let them out. Well, I was going to say let them out to dry, but obviously the opposite happened. So here's my map. Honestly, it's a bit of a janky map. I suggest going to the Bureau of Land Management proper and getting a map from them. But this will work. This is where I started yesterday at Black Sands Beach Trailhead at Shelter Cove. I only did about 2 or 3 miles of hiking yesterday to approximately right here, just north of Horse Mountain Creek Trail. So my entire trip yesterday is in frame right now. As you can see, it's a bit of a long route, which is exciting. I'm going to be going all the way up to Mattole Trailhead, which is, what, I don't know, 30 plus miles from where I'm at right now. My plan for today is to continue north along the beach all the way to Big Flat, which I've heard is kind of a place where a lot of wildlife hangs out. The only obstacle between here and there is this one impassable zone, which is maybe 4 miles long, between Gitchell Creek and pretty much all the way up until Big Flat. As such, I'm going to need to time my hiking to avoid the high tide, and I'll show you my tide chart right now. So here's my tide chart that I have printed out. As of right now, it is approximately 8:30 a.m. So the tide is as high as it's going to get. It's 6 feet. So according to the research that I've done, the impassable zones define high tide as above 3 feet. I'm going to play it safe and say 2 feet is not high tide anymore and thus passable. So that means that today I should be good to go around 12:30 p.m. That's a lot of time to hang out, but at least it's not raining on me. Alright, that was quite a nice campsite. I'm glad I found it. Now to get going. It's about maybe 10:30 a.m. I expect to have to wait for the tide a bit, but it is already receding. The waves, as you can see earlier, were all the way up to where I'm standing. And this is the direction I'm heading, up the coast. Now at the moment it's not raining, but it is supposed to rain on and off pretty much the entire day today. so I'm not sure how much I'm gonna film because my camera cannot handle being drenched. We will see. You can also see a bit of snow atop the mountain there. I just got rained on pretty heavily for a while there. I'm maybe half a mile from Gulch Creek, which is the beginning of the Impassable zone. And I've got a little break in the weather at the moment. I spot some migrating birds, probably geese. Can you see them? All right, here I am at Gulch Creek. Now begins the impassable zone that I will wait about an hour to begin upon. Check out this slide area. Clearly been a recent landslide here. I think I've heard a couple of rocks fall as well. Not here, but behind me. So I'm gonna stay a little bit far from the cliff. So I'm in the midst of the impassable zone and it's about 1 p.m. The tide is maybe at 2 feet, maybe a little lower than that. And it's clearly passable at 2 feet. So not quite as rugged as I expected, which I'm okay with. The footing is variable, but it changes quite often. That mixes it up, makes it exciting. So I'm here at Buck Creek, which is in the midst of the impassable zone, which turns out to be quite easily passable. A couple of really nice campsites here. Right here is the Buck Creek Trail, which is apparently super steep and brutal. It's about a 3,000 to 4,000 foot climb, and I was originally going to do that. I was originally going to go all the way up into the mountains from here, but I changed my itinerary based on a number of factors, which maybe I'll explain later when looking at a map. But instead, I continue north along the coast. Some of these slides must have been pretty recent. This tree, for example, which was a victim of one of the landslides, still has leaves on it. You know, they say that McWay and Alamere Falls are the only ones that go directly into the ocean, at least in California, but some of these come pretty close. There are crabs everywhere. These guys are probably about as big as my hand. I'm used to tide pools being from the Bay Area, but usually they have tons of sea anemones and very few of anything else. Here there's tons of crabs and pretty much nothing else. No big anemones, no starfish that I've seen, but got some friendly seals out there who I've enjoyed watching. Tide pools are really exciting, and I wish I could stay here longer, but it's about 2:30 now. Tide is about as low as it's going to get, and I've got a number of miles left to go, so it's time to continue north. So here's a pretty big creek. I wish I could film myself crossing it, but it's currently raining, so I don't want to get my camera that wet. Here's what I'm about to cross. It's maybe 40 to 50 feet. Some more tide pools that I wish I could check out more, but it is not only raining, but it's also getting later in the day. It might be raining, but man, what a pleasure it is to have this place all to yourself. I've not seen a single other person this entire trip so far. I guess I am sharing it with a couple of other creatures, like Patrick over there. It really can't be captured how massive these waves are. I mean, pretty much all up this coast so far, the waves have been enormous. So for the last few miles, it's been beautiful black sand that I've been walking on. Quite compacted, it's been easy going, but I have a feeling it's not gonna be quite so easy going through this. Actually, it's not so bad. The boulders are placed evenly enough apart, you can just kind of hop across. It takes a bit more concentration though. Man, the clouds out there are so tantalizing. It looks so nice, bit of sun, but consistently, pretty much for the past couple hours at least, it has just been rainy. I think because the clouds get smushed up against the King Range here, and then they dump their load. So tomorrow it's supposed to be sunny though. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, I've made it to Big Flat. It is indeed very big and very flat. Gorgeous looking up into the King Range as well. Again, you can see some snow, which is pretty amazing to me. So my plan from here is to go north and camp at the very northern end of Big Flat, which is still another maybe mile and a half from here. But it's about 3:30 p.m. Sun sets at about 6:15, so I've got a little bit of time. I'm gonna try to enjoy my time by the river and check out Big Flat for a bit. Up behind those clouds, where it's all snowy, is King Peak, the highest mountain in the King Range. My original plan was to summit that today. I'm kind of glad that I changed my itinerary. I'm here at Big Creek, and it's a pretty big creek indeed for California standards. It's got quite a bit of water coming down from King Peak. I'm not totally sure where I should cross. Okay, I'm about to attempt a crossing. Big Creek should be a lot of fun, or just very cold. Okay, I'm continuing north again across Big Flat. I'm not going to do much filming because it's very cold and I'm very wet and it is still raining a bit. Always raining. That's why it wasn't such a big deal for me to hop in that creek. I've actually crossed a few of them at this point. None that big, but I'm already wet. It's not much of a difference. And once you get walking afterward, you start to warm up a bit. I think I see some gobblers out there. God, I wish it wasn't raining. That's okay. It's part of the fun. Farewell, Big Flat. I'm looking for a campsite. Could have chosen something along the bluff there, but it seemed exposed. I'm hoping for a good campsite down here. We'll see, it doesn't really look that promising. So I could camp here. There is a bone staring at me menacingly. So that might be a bad omen, I don't know. Doesn't have that much wind protection either. I think I'm gonna keep moving. Well, I've yet to find a campsite still. And it's getting late. I've got maybe an hour left of daylight. I might just camp right here, just up on the bluff. Well, it ain't pretty, but it's gonna have to do the job. It's got a little bit of wind protection. It's well staked, although there hasn't really been any wind so far on this trip. Of course, tonight is probably going to be the night given my situation. But only a few hours left of sunlight, and I'm gonna kind of hunker down because it's beginning to rain again. Alright, this is where I say goodbye to the coast for now. Alright, it's getting dark on me fast and I need to make dinner still. So I'm gonna say goodnight here. It was a very wet and cold day today and I'm glad to be in my warm, dry tent. And I have to say at the end there is a little bit brutal. I was kind of tired of it raining on me and my feet being soaked. I logged about 10 miles, which felt like more because of the nature of the terrain, just walking on sand or boulders all day. I have a feeling I'm going to sleep well tonight. So, good night. Is it possible to make the same dumb mistake twice? Well, let me tell you. Day 3 started off like a pretty normal day. Good morning. It is about 7 a.m. and day number 3 of my trip along the Lost Coast. Normal day with some pretty big ambitions, that is. Today, I'm starting just north of Big Flat. Today's going to be a bit of a bigger day, which is why I'm heading out earlier. I'm going to be heading about 3 miles north of here to Kinsey Creek, and then I'll be taking the Kinsey Ridge Trail up to the ridge top, and then all the way over to Spanish Ridge, and that's where I'm going to camp tonight. I'm not really sure where on Spanish Ridge, just anywhere, hopefully with a bit of wind protection. In total, it's going to be about 12 miles with maybe 2,500 to 3,000 feet elevation gains. And to start off with, it went pretty well. The good news is it's meant to be sunny today and tomorrow, so I'm glad to be out of the rain and into some nicer weather. However, I'm still rather wet because it's incredibly humid right now. In fact, I'm not sure if my lens is fogging up or not because the viewfinder is all fogged up. Everything is quite wet. I left my shoes out to dry for real this time, and I think they just got wetter. I suppose there are uglier spots to camp. I got quite lucky as well. There's no wind at all, which I'm very grateful for. Okay, I'm all packed up and ready to start hiking. Out in the distance, you can actually see where I'm going to camp tonight, or at least the hill on top I'm going to camp. That horizon ridge there is Spanish Ridge, and I'm going to be on the top of that. So for a few hundred yards, there's a path up this bluff to bypass this little beach, but then it just goes right back down to the beach anyway, and it involves like a couple hundred feet of uphill in sand. I don't know if that was really worth it. So if there's one thing I've learned so far in this trip is that there are a bajillion different types of sand. This type so far might be one of the worst. It's really solid on the top, so you step on it, it holds your weight, but then when you push off, I can't, fully push off here, but it completely crumbles. So it's really annoying to walk on, and you basically have to like post hole in sand. It's about the outlet of Big Creek. I think I may have been calling Big Flat Creek Big Creek, but this is Big Creek. A little bit confusing in the naming. I cannot believe still that there's snow on top of those peaks back there. So Big Creek is indeed quite big. I don't know if I really want to cross this log. I'm not looking to get wet again. I'm starting to dry off finally. Hopefully I can find some place upstream. No! So I just filmed myself crossing this creek along the log here. It was rather death-defying, and yet I came back and my camera had fallen over. I didn't get the shot. There's my backpack. So, sorry. Much easier going up on this bluff. really just perfect out here. Perfect temperature, no wind, amazing trail at the moment, great visibility. Could not have asked for more from today. And it's only the morning. And you know, I thought going into this, how impressive could the Lost Coast really be? I'm used to the Marin Headlands and Highway 1, Big Sur. Been to those places a ton. How good could it really be? But Lost Coast has definitely impressed me. It's amazing. I've arrived at Kinsey Creek. This is where I'm going to fill up some water and then begin heading away from the coast up Kinsey Ridge. Somewhere over there. This is where I'm going to choose to cross. Alright, I've reached the trail junction for Kinsey Ridge. It's not really a trail, more of a old road. And I'm gonna begin climbing. Farewell for now, beach. I'm kind of sad to leave you because you are beautiful right now. But the hills call me. So, then it was time to start climbing. I really enjoyed this first part of the trip. Felt good to get working again on a backpacking trip, and the weather was like perfect. It was amazing out there. I've climbed maybe 800, 900 feet so far. I'm very grateful that this is a old road because it's well graded and not overgrown. I've still got a long ways to go, but I've climbed up almost 2,000 feet and I'm rewarded with a great glimpse of where I have come from. That's Big Flat, I think. I camped around that closer ridge. It's about noon 30. I just took a lunch break because why not? It's gorgeous here. I've still got a ways to go though, maybe 6 miles and 1,000 feet left to climb, so I'm gonna get moving. But then the nightmare began. As I make my way upwards, there's the occasional patch of snow, which still baffles me. It's not what I was expecting, but I guess I'm not that familiar with this range. Ever upwards. Check out this waterfall too. This is not at all what I was expecting to encounter on this trip. It definitely doesn't make the climbing any easier. I won't lie. It's a little brutal going up this. It's just so slippery. It's worse than sand, definitely. It's only maybe an inch of snow, although I think it might actually be hail that has accumulated. We'll also check out some more tracks. I've been seeing those all over the place. I do believe I'm near the top of this ridge though, and once I crest, I'm gonna be following it for a few miles, but it'll be generally flat. I've almost crested my ridge. Up there is, I believe, North Slide Peak, one of the taller mountains in the range. All the way down there is Kinsey Creek, which is why my feet are wet. My God, what I would give for some just normal ground. I thought today was going to be my break from uneven terrain and from crappy sand and boulders, and I guess I did get that break, but it was replaced with something worse. Now you might be thinking, Eric, why didn't you know about the snow? Didn't you see some on the mountaintops from down below? And to that I say, yeah, I did see it, but those mountains I identified were at 3,000 to 4,000 feet elevation, and I'm only at 2,000 feet. Did not think that it would be this low and this much. So the road has narrowed to a trail, and thank goodness, finally have some solid ground to walk on. Still a tiny bit of snow, but it's not a problem anymore. The last 5 or so miles before this, I mean, I think that defines a slog. That was a legitimate slog. I didn't film that much. I just had to go into like brainless hiking mode to get through it. I'm hoping that these conditions get better or at least stay the same. So all that slogging got me pretty behind schedule. I couldn't really go faster than like 1 mile an hour for many miles there. And I was seriously getting worked. It was tough slogging through there. So I ended up getting to Spanish Ridge quite a lot later than I had anticipated. Maybe only an hour and a half before sunset. You can barely tell that that's the ocean. Looks like some kind of science experiment. I'm just about a mile from Spanish Ridge proper. Finally out in the open again. I think that's North Slide Peak again, or whatever it's called, some combination of those words. I think I'll soon get some nice views of the ocean. Get my first glimpse of Spanish Ridge proper out there. It's been a long, long way. Almost at the crest. at the ridge top. This is quite the ridge. Just keeps going. I'm pretty far along the ridge now, but look at this slide area. It's enormous. So me being behind schedule like that is kind of important because I didn't actually know if there's any place to camp on Spanish Ridge. I looked at it on Google Earth and looked like there might be some promising spots, but also it's a ridge. It's going to be pretty exposed. So I wanted to have enough time to both explore for a decent campsite that wasn't going to blow me off the mountain, and also have some time to relax and finally enjoy a sunset. Unfortunately, due to my scheduling, there wasn't time to do both anymore, and I wanted to see a sunset. I was like, I just got to find a place to put my tent down, and it'll probably work. There hasn't been any wind like all day. In fact, like the entire trip, there's no wind at all. So I was feeling pretty fine about it. So I basically just looked for the most convenient place to put my tent down and went with that and felt fine with it. Also found the place that I think I'm going to camp. Hoping it's not a windy night. So far I've been lucky. And I'm also hoping that this little area will be a windbreak, not a wind funnel. The spot I chose was pretty exposed and crappy, but for whatever reason I felt confident in it, or tried to feel confident in it. Well, lo and behold, like immediately after I set up my camp, and this is like an hour to sunset at this point, the wind started picking up, and I started to not feel so great about my tent placement. So, given I didn't have that much time, and I had climbed all day, slogged all day to see this sunset, damn it, I just picked up my tent. I didn't even take it down, I just hauled it to what I thought was going to be a better spot. So, as ridiculous as it might look, I found my campsite. It appears wind exposed, but most, if not all, the wind is coming from my back. And it's actually quite protected from that by this hill. I thought I was so clever with that windbreak. And it worked for a while. And the wind was getting blocked by that little hill, and so I made some dinner and went off to kind of a higher point on the ridge to try to enjoy the sunset. But of course, the winds changed again, so they changed direction. I was no longer getting the benefit of that windbreak, And this time, those winds were not kidding around. I myself was getting blown around, and I was seriously starting to think that my whole tent was going to get like carried off the mountain. Even though it was staked in, the stakes would come out. So at this point, I'm like, crap, this is going to hell. I only have maybe 45 minutes left of daylight. I really wanted to see this sunset and enjoy it, but I'm super worried about my tent, and I have no idea where I'm going to sleep tonight. This is a problem. But I really wanted to see that sunset. And I had been on my feet without much of a rest for many, many hours, like 8 or 9 hours up to that point. And maybe I was a little delusional. But I remember standing there at my tent, kind of holding it down for a while, just like completely indecisive, like, maybe it could work, maybe the winds would die down after the sun goes down, I'll be okay. But I realized, nah, this is not a good idea. I've got to get out of here. So I bailed, which I think was the right choice. Should have been the easy choice, but it wasn't for me. I was just in that, like, I want to finally relax, see something beautiful kind of mode. But I knew that there were some campsites down at the beach, and I'm like 2,300 feet above the beach, and the trail down there is not only super steep, but it also, according to my research, is like really overgrown and difficult to find. And it's getting dark. I have like 30 minutes left of daylight, essentially. So, although I didn't know that beach, I didn't know if it had any actual wind protection, I knew it would be better than up on the ridge. So I started booking it down. I did stop and take a few shots because it was just gorgeous, but I really could not enjoy it. I was trying to get down as fast as possible, and the winds were just insane. However, about halfway down, maybe 1,300 feet of descent, I saw this little nook in the hillside that had a sort of use trail going off to it. And I thought, that looks pretty promising. Maybe there's a campsite there. So I investigated it, and luckily, it turned out to be a pretty decent campsite with some good wind protection. No wind here finally. Holy shit. I mean, still a little bit of wind, but doable. So, here I am now. It is the morning of day number 4, and I am so glad that I found this spot, because otherwise I would have been tromping around in the high grass on that steep slope and then down on a beach I'd never been to, in the complete darkness, in the cold, trying to find a campsite, and I found this one just in time. Just had enough daylight to pitch my tent without any assistance from a flashlight or anything. So yes, it is very possible to make the same dumb mistake twice within 1 year. The only difference is that on the Young Lakes trip, I was a newbie to backpacking. I didn't know any better. This time, I should have learned. But I guess I was getting greedy for those sunset views, and got lulled by the lack of wind prior on the trip. So I'm pretty pooped out now. I did about 16 miles with well over 3,000 feet gain yesterday with a full pack on, and a lot of it through that snow. So I'm allowing myself a bit of a late start today, and that's okay because, well, I'll show you my plan for today on the map. Today I'm going to descend down to Spanish Flat and then go north for about 1.5 miles to Randall Creek. Randall Creek is the start of another impassable zone, and I'll show you my tide table in just a moment. But after Randall Creek, when the tide is low enough, I will go past Cooskey Creek all the way to Sea Lion Gulch. In total, I only have to do about 6 to 7 miles today, most of it flat. So, much easier than yesterday. And here's my tide table. The tide, they say, needs to be about lower than 3 feet, but just like before, I'm going to play it safe and say 2 feet. So that means that today I can start hiking at just about 2:30 or maybe just after 2 p.m. Given that it's currently about 9:15 in the morning, I have a little while to hang out. Honestly, I'm looking forward to a nice, relaxing day where I can take things a bit slower, and maybe enjoy a sunset for once. Things have been rushed or rainy up until now. Okay, I'm packed up and ready to go. This is where I camped. You can see it's got good wind protection on all sides by hills and trees. And even still, it was gusty all night. My tent was getting ripped at. I have no clue what this is or why it's here. There's water coming out of this thing at the base. But this is kind of what cued me to the fact that there might be a campsite in there. And there's where I camped. And it's nice not to be in a huge rush right now. Out there you can see Big Flat and Shelter Cove. Those are the first people I've seen this entire trip. It's a bit crazy. Caught a glimpse of a hare. It was quick. So as my research had indicated, the lower portions of Spanish Ridge Trail, it's not really a trail, it's just you gotta find your way down the hill. I am very glad that I wasn't doing this last night. So I've just been following a number of deer and bear paths. I know that they are such because I just see scat everywhere. Some more people. This last bit looks like it's going to be a bit interesting. Yeah, it's a bit sketchy. So I made it down, immediately met a couple nice ladies who I chatted with, and I'm going to continue northward now. Need some water, and then need to wait for low tide. Made it to Randall Creek. It's quite windy again. I'm here at Gitchell Creek, and I'm really just waiting right now. It's about 1 p.m. and I expect the tide to get low enough to pass this area starting around 2 or 2:30 p.m. So I've got a little while to hang out. Okay, it's just about 2 p.m. so I'm going to start getting going. I sat here for maybe about an hour, hour and a half, chatted with the two women who I met after coming down the mountain. June and Kirsten, I think it was. For June, it was her first ever backpacking trip, so I hope she's enjoying it. From here, it's about 2 miles to Cooksey Creek, or Cooksey Creek, I forget what it is. And then about 4 miles to Sea Lion Gulch. I plan to camp at Sea Lion Gulch, but I don't know what the wind protection situation there is, and I'm kind of scarred from last night, so we will see. Back to boulder hopping. It has been miserably windy. I'm in a bit of a wind cover right now, but holy cow. Arrived at Cooksey Creek. Quite a few campsites here. The wind is dying down, thankfully. And I'm getting closer to Sea Lion Gulch, which should be about 1.5 miles that way. Okay, I had my fun in the tide pools. Let's continue north. Alright, I'm inside Sea Lion Gulch now. I'm really hoping I can find a campsite somewhere. Thank goodness. I found a well-protected campsite. I'm going to camp there. Whew. Holy cow. I am finally able to sit and enjoy a sunset. It's not super windy, although it's a little windy. It's not super windy. I've got a campsite set up that's pretty safe. It's not raining and it's not super cold. I am so pleased. And I'll be camping with the two ladies who have been leapfrogging. There they are down there. Okay, the sun has set. It's time for me to fix up my tent and then go to sleep. I am pooped. It was another rocky, sandy day with a tricky downclimb of Spanish Ridge. And I have to say the northern half so far of the Lost Coast Trail is not quite as pretty as the southern half. But it was still very enjoyable nonetheless. I'm quite happy to have finally seen a relaxing sunset. Good night. I wake up and it's all cloudy. Not windy though, thank goodness. And so, it is day number 5. I won't lie, yesterday was miserably windy the entire time. Overall, it was kind of an unfun day of hiking though, to be honest. Like the headwind plus the uneven sandy beach hiking was it was a little difficult. I'm very thankful that today is not so windy though. Got a little bit of a breeze and it's cloudy, but it's not rainy and it's not crazy gusty like it's been pretty much every day of this trip so far. It's currently about 10:30 a.m. so as you can see, I'm still kind of by camp, so I'm getting a late start. Spent the morning chit-chatting with those two women, Kiki and June, who I met yesterday and who I know pretty well at this point. Spent a lot of time kind of hanging out together, waiting for tides or just at camp. It's funny though, before yesterday I hadn't seen like any other people, really not even a trace of another person. And then all of a sudden yesterday I see like 25 or 30 people. It's kind of, I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because people start from Mattole and then hike in a bit and then hike back. I don't know. But it was a much busier day on the trail than it had been the previous days. Also, 3.5 days is quite a while not to see another person for. But I really didn't feel lonely. It was very different from the Spring Canyon trip where I didn't see anybody for 4 days. Even though it was a similar amount of time, Spring Canyon, like the solitude was palpable. You felt isolated and alone. And here it didn't feel like that at all. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was because there are trails and I hiked along an old road for a while. So there's some signs of civilization, I guess, whereas Spring Canyon was off-trail route. Otherwise, I'm not sure why that was. Today, I've only got maybe 5 miles left until the trailhead where my dad's going to pick me up. But I'm getting a late start because there's one small impassable zone that I have to wait until 3 p.m. to cross. So I've really got a lot of time until then. I'm going to take it easy, take things slow, had a lazy morning, and try to enjoy the trail. Here's another view of all these sea lions on that rock. Honestly, I'm not totally sure how they get up there. It looks pretty steep and they're pretty high up, and I don't think of sea lions as particularly dexterous, but maybe they are. There are a lot of them out there, and I'm sad that I couldn't narrate like this yesterday, but it was windy as hell. I think we might be about to see a high dive. Saw a couple jump off already, but haven't gotten it on film yet. Okay, it's 11 a.m. I'm gonna start hiking, albeit at a leisurely pace. This waterfall must be maybe about 40 feet tall. Quite impressive. I'm off of the bluff trail above Sea Lion Gulch, and I am heading north towards gosh, I forget the name of the lighthouse. I'll be sure to get back to you about it. But there's the lighthouse, and it looks like a couple of people. Maybe Kiki and June, not sure. And there are just waterfalls everywhere. Check out that one. Here's one blubber buddy. I didn't even see him. I walked right by, but then he snorted, so I heard him. This guy's a big boy. He really blends in. And there's a little baby. These guys are all over the place. They really are just like logs. Like, you could accidentally step on one. Now they're all staring at me. And a big boy here. So I've reached the old abandoned lighthouse. I'm gonna check it out. Well, up we go, I guess. It's not a very big passageway, but you are rewarded. It might be Shelter Cove all the way out there too. Hard to say. These nice folks here are from Humboldt State University. They're doing a survey of the sea lions here and the elephant seals to keep track of their numbers and all that. Pretty cool stuff. I appreciate the work that they're doing. Walking on a trail, walking on a trail, just walking on a... Oh! Hey there. So I've reached a creek that I have to cross by getting my feet wet. I was hoping I'd have at least one day where my feet didn't get wet, but nope. My feet have been wet for so long. So I'm about 2 miles from Mattole, and this is the quote-unquote impassable point just north of Punta Gorda Lighthouse. I think that's what it's called. This impassable zone is very passable. It's about 1 p.m. and the tide is at about 4.5 feet, although there's no swell. So just like the impassable zone way down south, doesn't look so bad. It's a rather fitting way to end the trip, because I saw some migrating geese at the very beginning as well. I am almost to Mattole. I've made it to the Mattole trailhead. Now I just gotta wait for my ride. Alright, so I'm here at the Mattole trailhead still. It's currently about 4:30 p.m. Been here since 2:30, just hanging out. Apparently the road to get here, at least the most direct one from where my dad's staying, got closed off due to an accident. So my dad's having to go all the way around some back road to get here, and it's taken him quite a while. So I made myself a small fire, just kind of hanging out. My feet are wet and cold, and I'm tired and hungry, but I'm making do.
Crazy.
All right, cameo appearance from Papa Meyer.
Yeah, Pop Meyer shows up after about 4 hours of driving because the road was blocked with a jackknife truck, and they're like dirt roads. I'm like, what the heck's the guy doing on the road?
So
and I talked to the guy. I said, I said the obvious. You're stuck. He goes, it's complicated.
Well, it did complicate. It complicated our plans.
Yeah, it's complicated for me, dude.
So that concludes my 5-day adventure along the Lost Coast. It was a great trip. It had a bit of everything. Had some rain, some snow, some sunny days, some very windy days, mountains, beaches, river crossings, you name it, it had it. It was a fantastic trip with a lot of diverse experiences. Highly recommend, especially the south part of it. That's it. Any final words?
No. Let's go home.
Let's go home.